Hi, and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Sue, and today we're preparing a classic Greek dish found at Greek festivals all over the nation and at Greek restaurants. It's pastitsio, a delicious macaroni dish. Pastitsio is a delicious casserole, and it's made up of three components. It has a meat sauce, it has a macaroni, and it also has a cream sauce. So to make these three components and assemble them together, you'll need the following ingredients. For the meat sauce, of course, you'll need a pound of ground beef or ground lamb, and try to get the leanest you can. You'll need some olive oil, 2 onions, 2 large onions, 2 to 4 cloves of garlic, tomato paste, and for the flavorings, you'll need the traditional Greek combination of a little bit of allspice, a little bit of nutmeg, cinnamon, and of course some oregano. For the macaroni layers, you'll need a pound of small elbow macaroni and some Parmesan cheese. For the cream sauce, you'll need butter, flour, Parmesan cheese, milk, and 4 eggs. You'll need to make each one of these components separately and individually and then combine them into the final product, the delicious pastitsio casserole. The first thing you'll need to do if you're going to make pastitsio is prepare the meat sauce. And this is a sauce that has delicious flavors and needs 2 onions, 2 large onions. So just start chopping up the onions. And they should be a fairly fine dice. The onions add to the sweetness of the entire sauce, and they're just delicious. I like to saute my onions separately in olive oil because that allows me the chance when I'm browning the ground beef to drain it very, very well. So I don't really combine the onion and the ground beef when I'm sauteing. As I said, just chop it into a fairly fine dice. I've met some people who swear they can't stand onions in food or garlic in food. And I don't even see why you'd even want to bother living if you can't have onions and garlic in your food. That's what makes life worthwhile. Anyhow, take the onion, just put it in a pan, a saute pan, with a 1/4 cup of olive oil. If you're going to cook the onion, you don't necessarily need to brown it. So about a 1/4 cup of olive oil. When I was still living at home with my mom, being a wonderful Greek cook, everything she cooked started with chopped onion, sauteing in olive oil or butter. And it was funny, she would start with a whole onion chopped. By the time I got done going into the kitchen and snitching spoonfuls of sauteed onions, I don't know what she had left. I have always loved the taste, the flavor, the fragrance of sauteing onions. Next we go to the garlic. You can use 2 to 4 cloves of garlic, depending on how much garlic your family likes. I'm going to use at least 4 cloves of garlic or more, depending on what I pulled off the head. All I do is just smash it a little with the knife, and then the peel comes off rather easily, and then from there you can chop it, and chop it finely. Alright, I'm chopping the garlic now into, again, a pretty fine dice. And I definitely ended up with more than 4 cloves, and that's okay with me. Adding more garlic will not hurt this dish at all. And now I'm going to just add the garlic to the onions that are already starting to cook. And because I'm more interested in having them cooked than having them browned, after incorporating the garlic, I'm just going to put the cover on and let them cook in this wonderful extra virgin olive oil. And I can start on the meat. I'm sauteing my beef. Breaking it up. And as I said before, I'm sauteing it separately because I want to be able to drain this really well, get as much fat out of it as possible. Even though I have used a very lean ground beef, I like to just take extra precautions and remove as much fat as possible. So the only thing for me to do is just keep breaking it up, keep stirring as it browns. The beef is browning nicely, but you can see there's an awful lot of moisture. So I'm going to keep cooking it until all the moisture is removed, and then I'll drain it. And I'm going to give the onions a stir. They're coming along nicely too. Actually, the longer the onions cook, the sweeter they'll be. And Pastitsio has that hint of sweetness from the onions, from the cinnamon. It's really a delicious combination of flavors. The beef is browned, and now I want to drain it well. I'm going to take it off the stove and put it in a dish that's been lined with 3 layers of paper towels. And this should remove any excess fat. Just spread the beef out to the edges of your plate and let it sit for a few minutes so that the fat can be completely absorbed by the paper towels. All right, the next step is to combine everything to make the meat sauce. My meat has been draining, so I'm going to add it to the cooked onions. If you wanted to make sure that there was no additional beef fat or lamb fat in the sauce, you could take another step with 3 new clean paper towels, line a colander with them, put the beef in there, and then run boiling water over it, and that would flush out any additional beef fat. But I'm not going to worry about it too much right now. Draining in the paper towels did just fine. Okay, so we've got our beef, we've got our onion. Now it's time to add 1 6-ounce can of tomato paste. And tomato paste also adds to the sweetness. It's very thick, concentrated product, the tomatoes having been cooked for a long, long time. All right, so we have a can of tomato paste. Now you can add 1 cup of water, or you can choose to add a 1/2 cup of wine and a 1/2 cup of water, whatever you feel like doing. But today I'm going to use just water. Okay, now comes the flavorings, the seasonings that make this such a unique sauce. Start with a pinch of allspice, 1/8 of a teaspoon, if you will, or a pinch. Allspice is delicious in any dish that you use beef in. It just adds a wonderful, sumptuous flavor to it. A teaspoon of oregano. I'm down to the bottom of my harvest, but I think I still have enough to flavor this. Teaspoon of oregano. 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Now, nutmeg is usually thought of something that you use in sweet things, but it is a very, very famous Greek flavoring used in combination with cinnamon. So a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and then a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. This combination of cinnamon, nutmeg, and tomato sauce is a classic Greek flavoring and used in so many things. Okay, there's a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. You can see that this is not going to be a juicy sauce. It's going to be very, very thick, and that's how it should be. Just blend it thoroughly, and then put it on the stove to simmer for about 20 minutes. And I would cover it. While the meat sauce is cooking, I'm going to get started on the white sauce. That's another layer, another component of the pastitsio. You'll need 2 cups of milk, and they should be warmed. So I'm going to pour it into a Pyrex measuring cup and warm it in the microwave. I'm just going to warm it about 3 minutes. Okay, hopefully it's warm enough. Yeah, it feels just fine. For the cream sauce, we'll need 1/2 cup of butter. If you're worried about the cholesterol in the butter, you can use a good quality margarine. Let that melt. The butter's just about all melted, so now it's time to add the flour. 1/2 cup of butter to 1/2 cup of flour. This will make a very thick cream sauce, and there's a reason for that. It's not going to be poured over vegetables or anything like that. It's going to have 4 eggs added to it, so it needs to be thick. This part is what you need, about 1/2 cup of butter or margarine to 1/2 cup of flour. What you do is just blend it well and then cook it a bit. It should bubble a little bit, and that gets rid of that floury taste. You can see now that the flour and butter mixture is really bubbling. It's cooked. That means there won't be any floury taste. And so now it's time to actually take this off the heat and add the warm milk. As you whisk the flour butter mixture, add your warmed milk. Keep stirring and stirring until the milk is all incorporated and everything is smooth. One of the reasons why you wanted the warm milk is because it blends with the flour and butter mixture a lot easier than cold milk. Now you can put this back on the heat, very low heat. For it to just finish cooking a little bit. This cream sauce is completely cooked. And I want to bring it over here so that you can see just how thick it really is. It is quite thick. And that's the way it should be. As I said before, it's not a white sauce or cream sauce that you're putting on vegetables or anything like that. It's going to create a layer, and it needs to be this thick because we're going to be adding 4 eggs to it. Now the meat sauce is also cooked. It's just perfect. And like the cream sauce, it's also very, very thick. Not juicy at all. And I'm going to take this off the heat and let it sit while I prepare the macaroni. I'm filling the pot with water, about 4 quarts of water to a pound of elbow macaroni. I'm putting the water on to boil. It needs to come to a rolling boil. Add about 2 teaspoons of salt. And wait till it's completely boiling before you put in the macaroni. The water's boiling. So I'm going to add the macaroni slowly. Stirring it so that it doesn't stick to the bottom. And boil it for about 10 minutes at a rolling boil. Be sure to stir it every couple of minutes so it doesn't stick to the bottom. After 10 minutes, you want to check the macaroni. Just take one piece and taste it. They should be just al dente, not too mushy. So these are fine, and I'm going to rinse them now. Drain them and rinse them. Now I want to rinse these, but I want to stop the cooking, and I don't want them to stick together too much. So I'm rinsing them in cool water. And I'm going to set them over the pot to drain just a little more. While the macaroni is draining, I'm going to get back to the white sauce. Now, I cheated. I let the white sauce cool down. And now I'm going to put the beaten eggs in. This way, I don't have to worry about the eggs scrambling in the sauce. And I don't have to do a thing where you're pouring in a little bit of the hot sauce into the beaten eggs and back and forth and so on and so forth. So the sauce is cooled down. It won't cook the eggs. I'm going to beat 4 eggs. Now I'm going to add the eggs to the cooled white sauce. And just combine this well. What this is going to do is when you pour it on top of the pastitsio, it's going to make a delicious custard-like topping. That's the hallmark of pastitsio and also the famous Greek dish moussaka. To the white sauce and egg mixture, you want to add, for flavoring, 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, and a dash of nutmeg. I've already added a dash of salt for each of the eggs. And that's it. And you can see with the addition of the eggs, that's why the white sauce needed to be so thick, because now it's a fairly thinner consistency. All right, so we have our 2 sauces ready. We have the white sauce that goes on top, and we have the meat sauce that's been waiting on top of the stove. So let's get the macaroni ready and then put the whole thing together. All right, now I'm going to take the drained macaroni. I'm just putting it back in the pot. Why dirty another dish? It's still warm. There's no reason to leave it to cool completely. But you can see by rinsing it, it's separated. It's not all bunched together. And I'm going to add 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese to this. A little bit more certainly is not going to hurt anything. So about 1/2 cup, break up any lumps. And about 1/2 cup of the meat sauce that we made. Like so. Now just combine this well. I might need a little more meat sauce. Could go up to a cup. The idea is just to get a little of the flavoring throughout all the macaroni. I think I'll add a little more. All right, you can see all the macaroni is covered with Parmesan cheese and has just a little bit of the sauce in there. Now it's time to assemble the entire casserole. You have three components. You have the macaroni, you have the meat sauce, and you have the cream sauce. So we're ready to go. You'll need a 13 by 9-inch baking pan. And before you do anything, I recommend that you either brush it with olive oil or use this vegetable spray, PAM, an olive oil vegetable spray. Just spray all the bottom and the sides so things won't stick too much. Now, you want to make a layer of half of this macaroni on the bottom. So all you have to do is just spoon half of the macaroni onto the bottom. And if your layers aren't perfect, that's okay. It really doesn't matter. It's still going to taste really good when it's finally put together. All right, I have a nice layer of macaroni on the bottom. Now you take all that delicious meat filling that you made and put that on top as evenly as possible. And just spread it out. And get as close to the edges as you can so that every cut will have some of the delicious meat filling. Next, the final layer of macaroni. And spread this out as evenly as you can. And press it down slightly. The last step is to pour the cream sauce all over the top. Pour it as evenly as you can. And spread it out so it makes one nice layer. This will puff up and brown, and it's just delicious. As I said before, this is what makes Pastitsio so different, and it also makes Moussaka such a different eggplant casserole. Spread it out so that it too reaches all the edges and covers all the macaroni. And we're ready to bake. Put the Pastitsio casserole into a preheated 350-degree oven. It should bake at least 45 minutes to an hour. After 45 minutes, check it. The top needs to be a deep golden brown. It shouldn't be underdone at all. I baked the Pastitsio for an hour. When I checked it at 45 minutes, it hadn't browned. And for me, it's really important that it gets a nice kind of toasty brown layer on top. I want you to look at it as it comes out of the oven. It's slightly puffy And it's nice and brown around the edges. Has a nice layer of that cream sauce with eggs on top. All you need to do now is take it out of the oven and let it rest for at least 15 to 20 minutes before you cut it. The pastitsio has cooled for at least 15 minutes and I'm ready to cut it. Just cut it as you would any kind of casserole or lasagna. It's a wonderful dish for a supper party or buffet. I served it at my wedding reception, along with yaprakia, stuffed grape leaves. And now we're ready to serve. Take a look at that. Absolutely delicious. Wonderful layers of macaroni, a layer of meat filling, and this delicious custardy egg cheese topping. It just can't be beat. It's a wonderful, heartwarming casserole, and I know you'll enjoy it. Don't you think you'll need a fork?